Good day to all my students. Racism and discrimination will be the theme of our lesson this week. Let's find out how the author William Edward Du Bois revealed himself to the black and white Americans. In our modern times, do you think the fundamental problems of the Negroes have left unresolved? Let's get started. Let's read the first paragraph. The Negro problem, it has often been said, is largely a problem of ignorance, not simply of illiteracy, but a deeper ignorance of the world and its ways, of the thought and experience of men, an ignorance of self and the possibilities of human souls. This can be gotten rid of only by training, and primarily such training must take the form of that sort of social leadership which we call education. Confucius once said, real knowledge is to know the extent of one's ignorance. We aren't perfect individuals, but when we see failures more than our successes, we find ways to identify the underlying problems that cause our failures. We don't just wait for someone to tell us where we have gone wrong. We are not only lonely creatures with limited capacity to think. This is how the Negroes felt when they saw a huge gap between the whites and the blacks in terms of providing opportunities in search for quality education. In this paragraph taken from the essay of Dubois, what does the writer want to impart to the readers? Dubois showed how the whites had justified slavery by claiming that blacks were significantly inferior. Racial discrimination was strongly felt when the black men saw how difficult it was for them to receive the same privileges the white men were offered in terms of learning opportunities. Let's read this paragraph. The very first step toward the settlement of the Negro problem is the spread of intelligence. The first step toward wider intelligence is a free public school system. And the first and most important step toward a public school system is the equipment and adequate support of a sufficient number of Negro colleges. To achieve such kind of leadership, the Negroes must be provided careful training among men by well trained teachers. However, it turned out that capable men in their society were forced to accept positions within the mainstream American society when in fact they could pursue higher education for professional and personal growth. The African Americans could only wish for a free public school systems that would provide them sufficient learning tools and equal opportunity to be trained using sophisticated tools and methods in the so-called new civilization. With all these things in mind, the blacks could strengthen their intellectual powers and fortify character. Let's read this paragraph. Whence now is the money coming for this educational system? For the common schools, the support should come from local communities, the state governments, and the United States government. For secondary education, support should come from local and state governments and private philanthropy. For the colleges, from private philanthropy and the United States government. The writer himself took the courage to initiate some kind of movement for the blacks to realize their seemingly impossible dream reduce poverty. Ignorance and poverty are the greatest problems of the Negroes. Although the blacks were freed from the bandage of slavery, the agony of seeing themselves in a deplorable situation could no longer be hidden in the dark. They must come out and stand for justice and equality. They have to fight for social regeneration, which means ensuring that the places people live create new opportunities, promote well being, and reduce inequalities. Let us read this paragraph. Nevertheless, there is a large and dangerous class of Negro criminals, paupers, and outcasts. The existence and growth of such a class, far from causing surprise, should be recognized as the natural result of that social disease called the Negro problem. Dubois mentioned in his essay that the administration of the law was always for the avenging of the white victim and seldom for the reformation of the black criminal. And black men were denied a voice in government because they had no decent instruction or because they were black, even though they were considered intelligent. Hence, their sense of freedom was often accentuated by their color. Let's read this last paragraph. Can they bear burdens without strength, know without learning, and aspire without ideals? Are you afraid to let them try? Fear rather in this our common fatherland, lest we live to lose those great watchwords of liberty and opportunity, which yonder in the eternal hills their fathers fought with your fathers to preserve. How did the author end his proposal? Dubois challenges a country to protect and preserve what our ancestors had significantly contributed for world change. They faced the battleground with only the faith and hope as their weapons. Their death could be the start of a positive change. To know more about the Negro problems, read again W.E.B. Du Bois' The Training of Negroes for Social Power. We will have an online 10-item quiz in our synchronous lesson next week.